Hey everyone, I'm Brendan.
I'm Marshae.
I'm Shameel.
And today we'll be looking at Facebook use by people with disabilities. So, to paint the picture a little, let's talk about some general usage of Facebook. So, Facebook has been, social media use in general has been increasing in the past couple of years. And this is illustrated by how 73% of American teens use social networking sites. Furthermore, most people use social networking sites to interact with people that they're friends with in the real world rather than people that they only know, online. And social networking sites can actually increase one's sense of self. So most people generally post pictures and images of themselves and other posts that are happy. They want to show the best side of themselves, and this reaffirms one's positive sense of identity. And social networking sites are also good opportunities for social capital. So social capital is aspects of socializing that benefit either an individual or a group and help them achieve collective goals. And there's two kinds of social capital. There's bridging social capital and bonding social capital. So bridging social capital comes from socializing with people that you're not exactly that close with. They might be acquaintances, people you work with, people that go to your school, but you're not that close to them. And social networking sites provide good opportunities to interact with these people and bridge the gap a little. And the other kind of social capital, bonding capital, is interacting and socializing with people that you already have a close relationship with. These could be close friends and family. And again, social networking site has good opportunities to interact with these people more often. And both kinds of social capital are associated with psychological well-being. So let's talk about how people with disabilities have been found to use social networking sites. So it's been found that social networking sites can actually benefit people with disabilities specifically. So prior research has shown that many people with disabilities experience some form of social isolation, and a point that illustrates this is how the majority of people that use social networking sites that have some form of disability interact, in the real world, they don't interact with people that are non-disabled as often. They might only really interact with people that don't have disabilities, that are their family members or service providers. And social networking sites provide increased opportunities for people with disabilities to just communicate. And it could be more opportunities to communicate with people that are non-disabled, or opportunities to join an advocacy group and speak with people that have similar experiences as themselves. And so therefore social media sites can increase one's sense of belonging. So historically, people with disabilities have been underrepresented in many research, particularly research regarding social networking sites. So the present researchers attempted to focus primarily on how people with disabilities use Facebook. And they primarily examined how people with disabilities perceive and use Facebook, and if they use Facebook differently when interacting with their friends that have disabilities or their friends that do not have disabilities.
So, just a little bit about how the study was done. Before the research took place, there had to be a very descriptive definition of what disability was, or disability with respect to an individual. It is defined as a physical or mental impairment that sustainability limits one or more of the major life activities of such individual, a record of such an impairment, or being regarded as having such an impairment. So the way that this was taken out was there was a survey that was distributed to people who reported themselves as having disabilities and were a part of disability groups. The survey was published online, and it was also published in Facebook ads. And after running the survey for about 4 months, they received a total of 307 participants. But they narrowed it down by going with the participants that fully completed the survey, which led them to 172. So the website was Survey Gizmo because it met accessibility and usability standards such as the U.S. Rehabilitation Act and the Disability Discrimination Act. The survey included 19 questions overall, and there were 3 main sections: the frequency of Facebook, online activities such as sending messages, receiving messages, and posting on people's walls and timelines, and there were demographic questions that were open-ended and that gave the participants a voice. So, the way that the data was analyzed was through descriptive statistics, which illustrate characteristics, self-reported behaviors, and experiences of persons with disabilities on Facebook. There were 2 types of activities that were compared using a paired samples t-test. There were activities related to disabled friends and disabled groups versus activities related to non-disabled groups and non-disabled people. There was also a qualitative approach which analyzed responses to the open-ended questions, and the common responses were coded and analyzed together. So, the results of the study were that just a little bit of demographic information. Majority of the respondents were female, ages 20 to 39, were residents of the U.S., Caucasian, and reported to have a physical or mobility disability. A third of them identified as students and employees or self-employed. Majority of them had attained academic degrees. People with disabilities visit Facebook at least once a day, and they spend approximately 30 minutes. Approximately half of the respondents reported having up to 200 Facebook friends, but few of them reported that they had no friends with disabilities. Approximately 50% of them are members of disability groups, while the other 50% said that they were not. So the largest population were persons with physical disabilities such as mobility. People with sensory disabilities such as hearing and visual reported using Facebook less frequently than persons with disabilities of physical. Persons with disabilities primarily used Facebook for communication and activities with their non-disabled friends and groups as opposed to their disabled friends and groups, such as like reading messages, sending messages, posting on each other's walls, and things of that nature. The qualitative results were that 52 respondents answered the open-ended questions and revealed 3 core dimensions: a technical dimension, a socio-emotional dimension, and a professional dimension. The technical dimension brought up issues of safety, security, and privacy, and accessibility. Respondents didn't like the idea of communicating through Facebook because they felt that somebody could get their profile or somebody could have access to their information and that they were a stranger, so they didn't like that. Respondents also said that the unsafe and open characteristics of Facebook was not a preference for them and they would use other social platforms. The socio-emotional dimension was a way of getting support and advice through Facebook, and it also reduced feelings of isolation that people with disabilities often go through. The professional dimension, respondents viewed Facebook as an opportunity to create, maintain, or extend professional networks where they would get information about their disability or their job and get support from other people.
All right, so let's try to wrap up all of these, the study by going into the discussion on how these things relate and why these things actually resulted in the way that they did. We see that people with disability in the study behave for a large part in a similar manner to people, to the general public. And the primary users of Facebook who are disabled are roughly the same as you would expect the trend to be, which is that majority of them are women and children, women and young adults. Sorry, and so the typical characteristics of a typical user with a disability is that they have over 130 friends, which is above average. So it's to say that they do engage with social media to a certain aspect, and so you can equate them to your typical Facebook user. And like Marshae said, it's 30 minutes isn't the average for a person, and right here it says a typical session is a couple of minutes, but you see that oftentimes people use Facebook for more than a couple of minutes, and also for frequent more than one session. So that roughly equates to 30 minutes per day per respondent. A third of these Facebook users were disabled. They identify with more than one disability, which goes to say that one disability does not simply define the way that they interact with social media, but rather more than one disability factors into this. So people with sensory disabilities use Facebook far less than people with mobility or physical disabilities. And we'll see why this is in the next slide. So Facebook is inaccessible in certain ways to the people with sensory disabilities. And let's delve into some of the reasons why this is. Firstly, the fact being that the privacy information that Facebook distributes to its users is not as transparent as we would like it to be. Certainly, it's not as well as the people with sensory disabilities would like it to be, which hinders their anonymity. And for that, and furthermore, it's also relevant to text-based conversations. It's very hard for people with, let's say, blindness to be able to get the information from text-based messages sent to them, or read from people's world, or part of our society, and this is until we consider them an integral part of our society, we cannot even begin to make these changes, whether it be on social media or otherwise. So we know that the participation on social media has to do with the extension of one's network, yet we see that at certain times people with disabilities are hesitant to do so. So people with disabilities use this for community building because of this as well. They're also less likely to initiate new connections because they feel that they might be discriminated against, and this factors into their professional network as well. When people perceive that they will be discriminated against because of their disability, they feel less inclined to share or become engaged with certain aspects of social media. So let's look at it. We've talked about how it's similar that the general public and people with disabilities use this as a tool, and we see that the difference is that young and non-disabled people use group messaging way more, and they are very active on this. They post frequently, they engage in conversations more regularly, whereas people with disabilities tend to be more passive and observe and gain knowledge rather than actively engaging, which is a sense of isolation is also involved in this. So they prefer blogs rather than Facebook because it offers you a sense of it offers you a barrier against discrimination because you can choose who comments and who does what, who interacts in what way with your post. So this may tie into the fear of discrimination as well. So there's a lot of potential in social media. We may use it for advocacy activities for the disabled. We may use it for raising awareness about disabilities. We may use it to encourage the personal well-being and psychological well-being of these people because there's no face-to-face interaction. You see people act with more confidence when they have the option to do so. We can promote inter-community dialogue, and we can promote a better self-esteem and life satisfaction for them. So lastly, we will go to the limitations and future research that we may have. So this study was limited in certain ways. We see that the sample size is not representative of the majority of people with disabilities. Rather, it shows a vague connection between the way that they use disability. They use Facebook with respect to their disability. It relies on self-identification, and sometimes people are very hesitant to disclose the nature of their disabilities because they feel like, again, they will be discriminated against. So we need to get rid of that stigma in order to have a better response rate. Lastly, this was very impersonal. It was done online. There was no emotional response recorded. So we see that there's a kind of a rift that needs to be closed in that regard, whether it be with regards to conducting focus groups or one-to-one interviews. So we need all of these factors in order to in order to get like specific feedback and see how we can actually change social media for people with disabilities. Thank you.